Hi folks, now there's an old song by Noel Coward, Mad Dogs and Englishmen, come out in the midday sun. Well, it's not quite midday, but it's pretty close. I'm not any mad dogs, but I am the Englishman. So there's been I'm filming this in July 2024, and there's been some real tragedies recently due to people walking in extreme temperatures and getting lost. And in one particular case not been found yet. So having spent many years in the Middle East, both working, and now I've retired from work and I still come back on visits, I thought I'd just give a few ideas really if you find yourself walking in extremely hot temperatures. A lot of this stuff you already know, it's common sense, but there might be a few other points in it. Again, it's a statement of the obvious, but do you know where you're going, especially if it's in an area you're not familiar with? Have you estimated how long it will take you to get there, and have you got enough fluids, enough water with you to see yourself through that? In the UK, I know in the hill walking they have sort of escape plans if the walk hasn't worked out, an emergency way to get off the mountain, say, or the hills. Can you do that if you're out walking in places where it's extremely hot temperatures? Possibly not, but can you get back to a vehicle? Can you get in the shade if you're starting to overheat? Now, this is in a residential compound in Dubai where I'm staying, and I've featured this on other videos. During the winter time here, when it's about 25 degrees C, I have no problem at all walking around this. It's like 12-14 kilometres to walk all the way around, 3 hours say, even without having any water, until I get home. But now it's July, it's sort of 43, 44 today. Last week it was 51. Makes a massive difference. And I've done a couple of 8-kilometre walks around and then come back because I'm starting to feel the heat. So it is about acclimatising as well if you're not used to heat. I said I've worked and lived in the Middle East for decades before I retired, and even now when I come back I always get a little bit surprised. I forget how hot it actually gets. And you can probably I've got some sniffles because when you're in and out of ACs you sort of have a permanent head cold in a way. And if you hear my breathing, it's a bit like Tommy the Tank Engine. It's not because I'm walking uphill, look, it's just that the extreme temperatures actually do tend to take your breath away. So, the common sense stuff, obviously wear the right clothes. I personally don't like wearing shorts because I like to cover up. All the local people in the Middle East countries, when you see them, they're always covered, aren't they? And that's a common sense thing to do. So I don't tend to wear shorts, I wear trousers. I've got my come out in the sun perhaps even better. Desert boots on. These are YDS patrol boots, part of the 2013 issue. Good boots. Now one thing I found on this trip, and maybe this just applies to me, but it's something worth thinking about. There's a major road over there, look. Is that these fitted me fine. They're 9 large, which is my size. But I found now, probably because my feet are swelling up a little bit, one toe is now rubbing against the boot. So that's, causing me a little bit of problem. I don't think it's the boot shrinking. They're suede. Maybe it is, I don't know, somebody can comment on that. But it's more likely that my foot's just, swelled up a little bit in the heat. So if you were planning some high temperatures, it might be worth considering sort of an extra size up, so you don't have that problem, or it could just be unique to me. So again, I'm just walking around this residential area, so if something happened to me, there's plenty of people to help. Now in the winter time I have walked out plenty of times in the past into the desert, I wouldn't do that now. It'd be absolutely madness to do that in these sort of temperatures on your own. And again, I've driven plenty of times out, and both on work and on pleasure, and during the summer you wouldn't want to drive out because the sound gets just that much finer. You have to switch the ACs off in the vehicles because they take so much power off the engine, and if you get stuck, and you will get stuck, obviously it's a lot of effort to get out. And obviously one of the basic rules there is you never actually drive out with one vehicle. Having said that, I did break that rule once in Saudi with my best man. We went on our own to find Lawrence of Arabia's Hijaz Railway, which was a good trip, and we did get stuck. And it took us about 5 hours to get out. That's another story. So plan your route, fluids. Have you got plenty of water with you? You know, just stop here for a second in the shade, talking in a backpack. And if you've got extra, and I do mean you're sure you've got more than enough to cover your journey, and you're starting to heat up too much, then use some of it to pour yourself over your t-shirt. You know what like a wet t-shirt's like when you don't want to get cooled off. So a wet t-shirt does help you. Good headgear. That's the British Army DPM, the older DPM desert camouflage hat. Again, wide brim, covers your neck, so something like that. Baseball caps tend to, not give you that neck cover. That's a bit on the large size, although some people might sound a bit big-headed, but that aside, which is good. It's better to be on the large side than small, just to give you that that shade. So good headgear, good foot gear, particularly depending on where you're walking. If it's over rocky ground, protect your ankles. Now you've probably all had at some stage maybe heat exhaustion. So what is that? Well, when you're getting too hot, you start to sweat profusely, maybe you start to get dizzy, you might see some stars in front of your eyes. These are all warning signs, aren't they? They're warning signs to go and try and cool off somewhere. If you've got a vehicle nearby, obviously even better, some sort of building with an AC, get in the shade, if that's a member of the party you're with. Women don't have as many sweat glands as men, so they do tend to hot up faster than men. So just bear that in mind. If you're feeling uncomfortable and there's a woman in the group, she might be feeling a lot more uncomfortable. So that's heat exhaustion. But obviously if you don't do something about that, what can then happen is your body sort of locks up, you don't sweat now, and you gain heat stroke. And obviously that's a life-threatening condition, so if you've got anybody in that situation, you've got to immediately get them cool as quickly as you can. Again, if you've got a vehicle, if you've got a nice bucket, just pour it over them, anything to get their temperature down. Obviously it's about exposure as well. So this is Dubai, it's sort of 43 today. This time last year I was in New Mexico in the US, and I remember standing next to Billy the Kid's grave in the old Fort Sumner cemetery, and it was extremely hot. I don't think it was as hot as this, but it felt it, and I started to feel it there. But again, we were only out of the vehicle for maybe 30-40 minutes. So how long are you going to be exposed to the heat? Have you got some sort of escape plan if necessary? Again, if you're a tourist, particularly from the UK, where people go to Spain, Greece, obviously it gets extremely hot in those countries as well during the summer, working what, 30-35, but there's a massive difference between 35 and 45 and how that feels. Even 5 degrees once the temperatures start climbing does start to make a big difference. So be a bit careful, lying on the sunbed, having had a few bevies. You go to sleep, and if you're covered with a shade and then the sun moves, you can end up with some very nasty sunburn. I've seen that happen a number of times. Obviously ruin your holiday at the very least. So just be prepared for how hot it can really get if you're coming to the Middle East in the summer months, July, August, June, July, August, particularly July and August. These sort of high temperatures, they're going to be there every day. For some reason Kuwait gets even hotter than anywhere else. I'm not quite sure why, because they're further from the equator. One year it went up to 70 degrees, I remember, in Kuwait, and you get to those temperatures, AC that sort of can't cope with it, they just pack in. What else? No, that's about it really, I think. So wear the right gear, cover up. As I say, I prefer covering up to actually putting sunscreen on. I think covering up's better. If you're exposed to it over many years, you give yourself skin cancer. So cover up, good footwear, good headgear, plenty of fluids, and most importantly, you'll know where you're actually going, and don't get caught out. Now, I have been caught out, so actually in South Africa once, quite badly, where I really was suffering from the heat. And I've had heat exhaustion in the Middle East, of course, over the years for various reasons. But try to have, because once you are heating up and your brain's starting to frazzle, you're starting to lose your common sense is the best way to put it. Perhaps you're starting to lose your thought process to get yourself out of trouble. Again, obviously it does make sense not to go out on your own if you can avoid that, unless you really know where you're going, and you know that there's no issues with that, like there isn't for me here. Better to be in a group, isn't it? But I guess that applies in lots of different conditions. So that's about it, I think, really. Anyway, if you do find yourself in extreme heat, take care of what you're doing. Make sure you got the right footwear on. Make sure you got the right headgear on, the right clothes, plenty of fluids with you, and if things start to go wrong, and you know that because you're starting to feel it, try and get out of that heat any way you can, and just to cool off. That might be difficult, of course, depending where you are, but obviously you've got to try and do that. If one of your parties getting really in trouble, get them called off as quickly as you can, because it might just save a life as well. Alright folks, that's about it from me. So, hope to bring you some more boot videos in the not too distant future. Sometime I'll do an update on these YDS boots. They're good boots. I mean, I think they're, I've got a bit of an issue at the moment with one toe. Maybe that's just my foot's expanded a bit, but apart from that, they're comfortable. They're comfortable boots. Alright, wherever you are, take care.